I shared a small chunk of my memoir in progress in a writing group the other day and got beautiful comments and reactions from most people, except one. After everyone else had finished, this person made several cutting remarks about my work, and I'm still hurting and confused. I'm scared to face my work again and continue with what has been giving me so much joy. That negativity bias. She says, when I think of your stories involving Willow and Miller, I can see clearly that kids wouldn't do this. Maybe they'd bawl a bit, but then they'd move on or write unfazed without doubting themselves or their project. Do you have any ideas how I could emulate them? Well, Doris, first, it's so cool to see. It's so funny to see and so helpful to see in this just isn't it interesting, isn't it curious kind of way about that negativity bias that you mentioned. How we can hear 100 compliments and one criticism, and the thing that sticks in your mind and replays in your mind is the one criticism. That, me too. That is pretty much how humans seem to be wired in some way, right? Not really, but how our brains tend to go sometimes is exactly that we hear all this stuff and all the nice stuff just passes right through. Oh, they like it, that's great, no big deal. It's not like we hang on that so much, it just passes right through. And that one thing that's critical or judgmental that tries to pass through, but it hits this whole ball of stuff, which is just thinking that is like me and my writing and how is it and am I good enough and is this writing worth anything and it matters what people think and all of that is a giant ball of thinking in Doris's head, and everybody has their own in their head, and it's like sticky, it's like, again, we're in us and our worth and our identity and all of that garbage is right in the middle of it. And so that's why all this nice stuff, it just passes right through, but that one criticism, it'll just hit that and stick and reverberate in your head for however long it does. Now, the fact that I can talk about it like this, and we all can, the fact that everybody listening knows exactly how you feel, we've all been there in our own way, is not something to just like brush aside. I mean, what that really shows us is not just like, oh, isn't it nice, Doris? Don't worry, you're not alone. So much bigger than that. So much bigger than that. This is what a mind does. This is what a human brain will do. A human mind will do. Is it just, globs onto some information and then spins this whole very painful story about it. And the more painful and the more about us it is and our worth and all of that, the more we're going to hear it and feel it. And the more it's going to make your going to your work and going back to writing feel very hard and emotional and vulnerable and all of that good stuff. That is just what a mind will do. But why do we have to be so locked into that? Like that, we don't need to be victimized by that. It's no different than saying, now I have to think of something. It's no different than saying, I've been using this example a lot lately, but my husband has heartburn. His whole family has heartburn issues, most of them. It's just a thing they deal with. It's no different than saying, hey, if you have that spaghetti tonight, you're likely to feel some stuff. Now, it's just how his body works. I mean, it just is what it is. It's how his body works. He knows by now. So sometimes he eats the spaghetti, sometimes he doesn't. It is what it is. And he knows, he eats it. He's likely to feel it. He usually does feel it. He's like, oh, yep, that's what my body does. I eat the spaghetti, moves on. Now, I know that doesn't sound like what you're talking about, but what if it's exactly like what you're talking about? Your mind hears a criticism, it puts itself out there. Your mind says, ooh, it's my memoir. I mean, really, that makes the story even juicier, Doris. The story is about you. Your writing is about you. Of course, your ego is like, do they like me? Do they like it? So puts itself out there. Here's a criticism, like it's going to have a field day with that. But what if you could see that? That's just your mind reacting the way that my husband's stomach reacts when he eats spaghetti. What if it really kind of looked like that? It's no more personal. It's no more special. It's no more meaningful. One person's thought in one moment Sounds like they came back and gave you lots of criticism. So maybe it was over 5 minutes of moments. One person's thinking, Doris, and everyone, at that little chunk of time, it's nothing. There's nothing to it. It's just their thinking. And especially when it's critical, it's just their bad mood, insecure thinking, right? I mean, it's nothing. There is nothing real to that. Absolutely nothing important, or no truth, or no there. Even if what they're pointing to is like, hey, I think you should do this better or whatever. So what? That's great. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the criticism. It sounds like they weren't that kind. So again, it kind of is getting you a little more than that. But it's one person's insecure thinking in a moment, them feeling like they need to tell you everything that's wrong, that is going to do what? Keep you from writing? Keep you from doing what's been bringing you joy? Now, I don't mean to say it like that because it sounds like I'm telling you you're crazy, Doris. And again, we all get it. We've all been there. We have all stepped back from things because of one person's opinion. My mother-in-law has this story, really into my husband and mother-in-law stories lately. My mother-in-law tells this story of how she used to be very into drawing when she was young, in her younger days, right? Very into drawing, and she really could have gone somewhere. She was very talented. And she'll tell you. And so she has, all the pictures she drew in high school and around that time. And she drew a picture of my father-in-law when they were dating or first married or something. And it was pretty good. And she showed his mother, so her mother-in-law, and her mother-in-law, who was known to have a lot of very harsh opinions of people and to be very, very open in sharing those at times, said, that's no good. That looks nothing like him. And my mother-in-law will tell the story. She'll say, and in that moment, I packed up my pencils and my paper and I never drew again. And I always, I always say, like, why? Kind of like to show her something, but I know I'm a horrible daughter-in-law. I'm trying to coach my mother-in-law, but I'm always like, well, that's crazy. Why would you do that? And she's like, well, what do you mean? Why would I do that? She told me it was horrible and it didn't look anything like him. And again, this is a woman, her mother-in-law, who's known to kind of criticize everything. And even if she wasn't, even if she's the sweetest person on earth, one thought ran through that woman's mind and came out of her mouth in one moment. And my mother-in-law decided she was just going to put everything away and never touch it again. That's kind of crazy. Now, and it's human, right? It's kind of crazy, and we've probably all done that in our own way. But I think it's so cool to see that this thing called someone else's opinion, that because it has a name and a title and it has a feeling attached that feels very uncomfortable, it looks like a thing. It looks like something to respect or listen to, or like there's some truth in it. And it's nothing. Like, where is that opinion? It's nowhere. We can't touch it. We can't grab it. It doesn't exist. Their opinion doesn't exist. It's nowhere. It was in their head in one moment, and then it came out of their mouth. Now it's gone. It's nowhere. Except you know where it is, Doris. It's in your head. And it's in your head saying, what if they're right? And oh my gosh, and who do I think I am? So now their opinion does not bother you anymore. Their opinion's done and over. You can't find it. It doesn't exist anywhere. What's affecting you now, Doris, is your thinking. Your insecure thinking at that. Your insecure thinking saying, is my writing really that bad? Does no one want to read my memoir? Should I really just not do this? Should I pack up my pencils and go home like Amy's mother-in-law did? That's thinking in your head. And you know what? There's nothing to that either. It's a bunch of mumbo jumbo that happens in everybody's heads. There is nothing real to that. There's nothing helpful in that. There's nothing expansive and life-giving and creative in that. And it's what we all are up against, every one of us. We all have a head that says stuff like that. And if we want to be creative and enjoy life and do things that bring us joy like you're doing by writing your memoir and sharing it with people, then we're just going to have to hear that stuff and just let it go. And you ask about kids, and that's exactly what they would do, mostly because they just haven't really yet learned to take a lot of stuff too seriously. So Willow and Miller, unfortunately, now are at the age where they can hold on to things a little longer. But little kids, like, the only reason is they're not even capable of pretending like this thought is real and means something. They're not there yet. So they have very nice lives. They hear stuff, they hear criticisms, as you say, they cry, they move on. is what it is. So just see, Doris, there is nothing real here. And we all know how you feel. So how you feel is how you feel, not dismissing that. There is nothing real. This criticism thing that someone said, it's gone. No one can find it. Only place it lives is in your head. And even there's nothing to it. It's just a repeated thought that's kind of hitting up against what your ego thought things should sound like. And so it's just replaying in your head. The less you respect it, and the more you just go back to doing what you like to do, the sooner it's going to completely go away. So thank you so much for your question, Doris. As all questions are super universal, I know we can all relate to this. So I appreciate it. Send your questions, all of you, whatever your questions are about, habits, anxiety, insecurity, someone saying something, what should I do, whatever. Send them to me at askamy@thelittleschoolofbigchange.com, and I will address them here on Monday. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.